Hello and welcome to Todd and Shane's Cloudy Podcast number 379, recorded live Wednesday, March 7th, 2018. I am your host, Shane Young, and as you can see, I have the whole screen to myself. I have the whole microphone to myself. Mr. Clint is off in Redmond doing Microsofty things, and my trip got canceled. So I said, man, if I can't go there, where should I be? And I went ahead and decided to make this podcast for you guys. So I'm not there getting all the secret information that I couldn't share with you anyway. So instead, let's just talk about the things I can tell you this week. A couple of quick production notes. Todd is behind and out of town. Oh, I don't know what else to tell you. So last week's podcast still hasn't gotten produced. This week's podcast probably won't get produced until, 2020 or something like that. So I apologize for those of you that are waiting on the feed, but those of you that get to watch it live, you get to experience it. So another great reason to watch live. So all this cutting edge news that we're releasing, you can get it in a timely fashion instead of months or years later when Todd decides to do the production. What do you do? All right. Other production note, next week's show will also be without Todd, but I have a super special announcement. Are you ready for this? Are you all sitting down? I bet you're sitting down because you're probably in the car. But next week, the wonderful executive producer, Miss Lori Gowan, has agreed to join me. She says that she is going to join the show. She's going to do the Skype video feed. She's going to be there live and talk to us on the show. So you guys will finally get to hear what Lori sounds like. And if you tune in live, you can interact with her in the chat room. You'll be able to see the video feeds. I can't tell you how excited I am to have Lori with us next week. Now, this isn't to say she won't bail on us, but I just want to make sure that I put my excitement out there. So next week when I'm all sad, Panda, you guys can really appreciate it. So hopefully Lori doesn't stand me up. But man, I'm excited that Lori's going to join us next week. Cool. All right. So let's just jump right into today's topics. And the first one is, I actually had to do work last week. I did a lot of work last week. Maybe I'm bringing the other topic. Busy week. Anyway, and so I think Wednesday after the show last week, got a call from someone who needed some help with his SSRS in SharePoint 2016. Yikes, right? We all know that stuff is barely held together with bubblegum and wire. And so I was like, yeah, sure, happy to help, right? The old SharePoint 911 model. Get on there, we'll work together for 15 minutes, for 2 hours, whatever it takes, and get it fixed. And I was kind of excited at the beginning of the call because he used my videos to build the SharePoint farm, which doesn't include the SSRS stuff, but he got SharePoint installed correctly. So that was one giant thumbs up. I didn't have to go fix any of that. And then he was showing me what he had done with reporting services at that point. And he'd gotten reporting services installed. He'd gotten integrated. He'd gotten the report builder and all that stuff to show up in the library. I was like, man, this dude is like 99% of the way here. I should be able just to check a box somewhere and get him on his way. Yeah, that wasn't what happened. Unfortunately, it turns out, setting up SSRS for SharePoint, for me anyway, is a lot easier if I start at the beginning than if I start at the very end. We went through it all. It turns out we had some Kerberos issues. Surprise, surprise, because he wanted to do the whole delegated thing. So he'd gotten Claims to Windows Token Service set up. Remember that Claims to Windows Token Service needs a bunch of special local permissions for that account. And then Claims to Windows Token Service also needs constrained delegation, right? It can't delegate to all like all the other accounts can. So I had to set up the constrained delegation specific accounts. And then everybody in the chain has to do that. So then I had to go to the web app accounts. Anyway, fast forward a few hours. I got through it all, but it's just a reminder that when you're installing things like SSRS for SharePoint, you got to really just meticulously, one by one, check all those boxes. Even when they suggest silly things, make sure you take care of those. Step one is always to get the web app just itself talking to the clients on Kerberos. That was a little more work than we expected. Turns out he had created a CNAME, right? So I had to go in, change his CNAME to a host record. A couple other just little things like that got in the way. We had to make sure we flipped the web app from NTLM to Kerberos authentication by default. You have to go in and edit the reporting services config file. There was just a bunch of little pieces that needed to be done, and we had to be done in the exact right order, or that stuff doesn't work. The other thing that I found really upsetting here, and I don't know if you guys have the same problem, But for the most part, I have never in my professional life, right? I've done Kerberos and SharePoint for, I don't know, 10 years now. I can never get KList to work, right? KList is a little command line utility. It's supposed to show you all your Kerberos tickets. And it just wouldn't work for me. I don't know why. I mean, it works. It just doesn't show me the tickets for SharePoint. So then I ended up getting this other tool and then used it. It was able to show me the ticket was there. So I got through that problem. I also use Fiddler a lot. So if you guys haven't used fiddlertools.com, that web debugging proxy, one of the nice things there is you can see all the authentication headers. And those authentication headers let me confirm that I was seeing true Kerberos tickets. So anyway, I don't know. I'm mostly rambling here, but it's just a reminder that, man, if you're going to do SSRS and SharePoint 2016, start at the beginning, take your time, do all the silly things in the silly way that the instructions say to get it all working. Because it is a upset little critter. The other thing I had to do, right? I had 2 work things last week. Which was actually good, right? I'm a consultant, so I only make money when I work. But I also had someone call me up who wanted to have a Power App built. So I got to build that for him. Took about 10 hours of work to go from nothing to this awesome multi-screen Power App that he's using with his field techs in order to record some of the install activity they're doing. It's a pretty neat little solution, right? We made it with big buttons for big burly men, unlike me, right, who have little dainty hands. So we made big buttons and made sliders and things like that, but made it a real easy tool so that his field techs could record their progress of the installations they were doing and then push that back up to corporate. They could dispute things. They could look at open service tickets or open job recs for them to do. So it was pretty fun. I was kind of excited about that one. All right. Speaking of my jobs, I think you all know, right? I've been teaching college at the University of Cincinnati, right? I teach a class there on nights about Microsoft Cloud, SharePoint, Office 365, just kind of trying to arm these students with all the different pieces that they need. And so I was looking at that, but very fun little class. But one of the things Microsoft announced last week was that there are now more free Azure credits for students. I think this is the part where Chewy's going to bark. So 1 second, we're going to get Chewy out of here. There he goes. He sees his mommy's home. He doesn't have to bark anymore. All right, unpause. And so with the repause. Unpause. Okay, so last week Microsoft released a new updates to their program where they have free Azure credits for students and for faculty and staff, those type of things. So they're really trying to push the education space. Look at the free Azure credits for students. So it's a pretty neat little program, right? Because not only do they get a certain amount to spend in their Azure account every month, but they get just a whole bunch of resources for free, right? So they get like 750 hours on a VM, both Linux and Windows VMs. They get free or so many hours of SQL service. So they get a whole bunch of free services. And if they need anything outside of those free services, they have a credit to kind of cover those extra pieces. I just thought this was a great program from our friends at Microsoft, continuing to drive education. I can tell you that, my college students, for example, they all have Office 365 accounts. And so I am getting them to build a Power App. That's actually the homework they're going to get here after this show. I got to go send them the homework. But just trying to get them to touch this stuff and understand that there's this whole ecosystem out there. And I think things like free Azure credits lets them go out there and play without any consequences. And they're probably not going to build anything worth a darn, but they're going to build something. They're going to touch it and figure out that the things are out there. And then you're going to get those one-off students, right? The Mark Zuckerbergs of the world that are going to build, the next Facebook while they're in college. And hopefully they're going to do it with Azure free credits and it'll be on Azure forever. Yay! The other thing that's interesting with all that, speaking of, building things on Azure and being with Azure forever, I didn't actually have this in the notes, but, I can get distracted even when it's just me. There continues to be this large push from all these companies that Amazon is fighting with, right? Todd and I kind of talk about this several different shows. Amazon's fighting with the grocery retailers, right? They're fighting with the Walmarts and the Targets. They're fighting with these guys and these guys and these guys. Amazon wants to fight with the whole internet just about. But more and more of these enterprises, like, the Walmarts and the grocery stores and those guys, they're saying to their vendors, we will not use any software that is on AWS, which is kind of freaking people out a little bit. But the good news is for us Microsoft people, they are forcing their vendors to get off of AWS. And we know that the only real alternative to AWS is Azure. And so it's been a big boom for Azure, this, Amazon having a bad attitude. I know that there are Google Compute things out there, but honestly, no one in their right mind, I don't think, would use that. So I don't know. I just thought it was kind of an interesting point to keep, back of your minds, right? There's a bunch of your SharePoint people, and you're like, hey, what do I do next? Where am I transitioning? What do I think about? Azure continues to grow in popularity and become more and more important. Heck, in this case, for no other reason other than it is the anti-AWS, and some companies have very specific requirements to be anti-AWS. All right. So speaking of all of you, my SharePoint friends, quick public service announcement here. If your SharePoint 2013 farm is running a patch level that is before April 2017 CU, you will be unsupported starting April 10th, 2018, right? So, which is, about a month away. So you got a month to get those SharePoint servers up above. So this is for my SharePoint 2013 users, right? Remember, SharePoint 2013 is 5 or 6 years old at this point. If you haven't patched it and patched it a lot, well, you haven't been listening. So just a public service announcement. We've got a link to an article, Stephen Gubner, who, I say his name poorly, I'm certain, and it's not Stephen, it's Stefan. Told you I said his name poorly. He's got an article that talks about it, but it is just a quick little note just to remind you guys, get those 2013 farms patched up. Speaking of Microsoft tech, Microsoft Teams announced more guest access. So we know a while back they said, okay, now you can do guest access with anyone who has a Microsoft account. Well, they finally have started rolling out the update where now you can do guest access to anyone with an email address. Good news, that's pretty much everyone you know. And I was going to ask the question, like, who doesn't have an email address, right? Is there any human beings left? But then I started to think about it. I realized that my dad, right, he's on that other side where, he was a landscaper or worked with his hands all his life thing. I don't think he's ever been on the internet. I don't think he definitely doesn't have an email address. He definitely doesn't know what Teams and Slack and all that is. But I'm 99.99999% positive that my dad does not have an email address. And that just almost weirds me out, right? I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. But it does because my dad, and I know he exists. So I don't know. So anyway, the update for Microsoft Teams, it allows anyone with an email address to join. That's rolling out as we speak. It started rolling out this week. They said it'd probably take about 2 weeks to get to everyone. This podcast won't be produced for like 7 or 8 weeks. So by the time it's there, you should have access to it. Lori in the chat room, who will be our guest speaker next week, just said that her dad doesn't have an email address either, and he has a flip phone. My dad had a flip phone. I don't even know if he has a cell phone anymore. He kind of ebbs and flows on that whole thing. I don't know his number. I wouldn't know how to call him on a cell phone if he still has one. So, just not a technology guy. Still reads the newspaper every day. Do you even know what a newspaper is? Should I have one of those to hold up and show the kids? All right. Also keeping in the space of Slack alternatives, right? Slack is clearly doing something right. I hate Slack still. But, we got Microsoft firing off the Teams, trying to make it more Slack-like every day. And then our dear friends at Google just announced Google Hangouts Chat. That's right. Another chat product. If you go look at Google Hangouts Chat, which has nothing to do with Google Hangouts, of course. Google Hangouts Chat is a Slack competitor. I don't even know where to go with this, right? So first off, the fact that they put Hangouts in the name, might as well call it Google Plus Hangouts Chat, right? I mean, just use all their favorite buzzwords. They're just as bad as Microsoft, who likes to use Power in every product. Power BI, Power Apps, PowerShell, Power Pivot, PowerPoint. So Google's obsessed with the word Hangouts. So that's a fail number one. And then there's a link down, below. We're happy to share with you. There's a link to the article about it. I tried to read about Google Hangouts Chat, and I'm not exaggerating. I literally couldn't read it because my eyes just kept rolling in my head so far, right? And you can't read when your eyes are rolling in the back of your head. So if you read it, maybe you'll get excited. I couldn't even read it. That's how unbelievable to me it is that someone else would create another one of these chat products. And it's part of the G Suite, which once again, I will remind you all that no actual business runs G Suite for more than 6 months before they realize to get off of it. And I say that because I work with all these startups, and these startups are all like, oh, Google, G Suite, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, it's terrible, and no adult can actually use it to do work, so move on, and they don't listen. And then Stacy, the chat room, was saying that apparently Google wants her business so bad, they just sent her a Chromebook to have it. So I don't know. It's good for Stacy, right? I guess I'd take a free Chromebook. We know Todd's got like 75 different devices, so you can always send it to the graveyard that is Todd's collection of mobile devices and tablets if it doesn't work out, Stacy. So yeah. Anyway, Chris Webb would like to point out in the chat room that he likes Teams a lot more than he likes Slack, and he's actually really annoyed with Microsoft that they keep trying to make Teams more like Slack, which is probably valid feedback, Chris, right? It's your punishment for being an early adopter. All right. So there you go. The chat room just woke up apparently talking about Teams and Slack is the things you got to do to get their attention. On the hardware front, there was a neat little article. My buddy Brad Sams over at Petri writing. I call him my buddy because he literally lives like 15, maybe 20 minutes that way. We're actually overdue to play some golf. He's kind of a dork. Don't tell him, but other than that, I kind of like Brad. So anyway, Brad just did a review. It turns out that Microsoft is releasing a Surface Pro with LTE, right? So you get on the mobile networks. And they did this for businesses back in, I think, December, but now consumers will be able to take advantage of it and purchase a Surface Pro with LTE. I was like, that sounds kind of cool. I would probably be the type of person who would buy a Surface Pro with LTE. The only downside is it's only their super high-end model, right? So 256 gigs of RAM with an i5 and 8 gigs of RAM for $1449. I was like, yep, I don't think Shane needs a Surface Pro 4 with LTE that bad. So I am going to not purchase it now, but I thought it was a nice addition to the highly successful Surface Pro lineup. I also like the fact that it just has a SIM card slot, right? So whatever your mobile provider is, if you want to add it, throw in your SIM. And then once you've thrown in your SIM, you can go into the wireless network settings. You can either choose to get on a wireless network or you can connect via your thing. So pretty cool. And more hardware news. Oh, lots of hardware news. Our dear friends at BlackBerry, they just announced this week that they're pretty much suing the whole internet. I don't know. It looks like they're going to sue, Facebook? I lost my notes. Facebook, WhatsApp, not WhatsApp, WhatsApp, Instagram. I don't know. Apparently they infringe on, some bloody fake patent over here by, doing this thing. It's pretty annoying, right? Quite frankly, BlackBerry, if I didn't already not own their products or even know what product of theirs I would purchase, I would stop supporting them because all BlackBerry's done, and there's some comments in the article, if you read it, that one of their CEO talking about how they're going to go and protect their rights. AKA BlackBerry plans on becoming their new business model of, let's become a patent troll, right? They've got, I think, 40,000 different patents. I'm guessing about 10 of them are actually valid, and the other 39,990 are obvious things like left clicking on a mouse. And so they're going to go sue everyone and attempt to make some revenue from, taxing everyone else's innovation. That's how you've given up. You're no longer innovating. You no longer creating good stuff. So now you're going to go and take all these fake patents that you got the government to issue you and then tax all these companies who are doing innovation. The patent law in our country is just terrible. I can't even do it. So I'm very, very, very annoyed with them. So anyway, BlackBerry, fail. Not that they care what I say. Let's see. What else we got going on here? Other news. Coinbase. So every now and then we talk about cryptocurrency. I thought this would be a good time to talk about it because A, it's down. So Todd gets really sad because I made him buy some, which I still think you all should buy just enough to get started. And if you think that's a worthwhile topic for us to cover on the show, leave us some feedback or tweet me, at Shane's Cows or something. I would love just to get into, how can you get started and buy $100 worth of cryptocurrency? for no reason other than I just want you to understand how the system works. Anyway, we won't get off on that tangent right now. But Coinbase, so Coinbase is probably, in my opinion anyway, the number one, marketplace for buying it. So the cryptocurrency I own, I bought it all through Coinbase. It all sits out there. They're FDIC insured. They're a legit company that lets me dabble in the cryptocurrencies. Anyway, Coinbase, easy for me to say, just added a new product. They're going to offer an index fund. And so, an index fund, if you're not familiar with those from the stocks term, right, is where you buy a whole bunch of assets. And then, so maybe you got $100 of an asset, and then you just spread it across all the different cryptocurrencies in this case. And so the idea being is that you just move up and down with the market as a whole, right? A lot of people, one of the best stock advices that people like Warren Buffett give is buy an index fund of the New York Stock Exchange. And so in that way, as long as the market as a whole is moving up, you don't care if one stock is down or not. You're just moving with the whole. But the same thing, if the whole market comes crashing down, your index fund comes crashing down. But it gives you a way to put your money in without trying to go and be the magic, throw darts at a wall type of person and pick the right stocks. So index funds have been great in the stock market. I think last year it was some absurd number they made. I wish I'd had my money in index funds last year. So Coinbase is now offering to sell index funds of cryptocurrencies. And only downside is as of right now, you have to be what do they call it? An investor, an accredited, sorry, I couldn't think of the word, an accredited investor, which means you either have to have a certain amount of net worth or you have to make so much income. The good news is about being an accredited investor is it's self-reporting. So you just get to say, yep, I'm an accredited investor. And they go, okay, we'll sell you this thing. There's no checks. There's no government process. There are levels you're supposed to meet before you say it, but it's purely on the honor system. So if you've been looking at that type of stuff, I don't know. I don't know what I think about the index fund, but I thought it was good news to see that market continuing to mature, right? The cryptocurrency market as a whole continuing to mature. Things like index funds add to the ability for people to invest and try it out. So what else? Another thing here I want to talk about. I've been very busy. So my trip to Redmond got canceled, and so my calendar was wide open these last 3 days. So I've been popping out videos. I created one just 30 minutes ago. It talks about how to use PowerShell and Hyper-V. And so, or I guess I should say, use PowerShell to manage Hyper-V. So it walks you through how to get that going, how to create VMs, stop VMs, all that stuff. And at the end, I give you a script that takes a CSV file, right, comma separated values, of a bunch of servers. You pipe that over to this PowerShell script, and it will build all these VMs in Hyper-V for you. So thought that was pretty fun. So I popped out that video. Also in the PowerShell front, I tried something new, and so I would love your feedback. If you're a watcher of my YouTube channel, normally it's just me being my lovable self. But what I tried in this video is I've created a video called PowerShell Create Multiple Users from a CSV file. And so in that video, it walks you through using Azure AD, or not Azure AD, on-prem AD PowerShell commandlets to create a bunch of on-prem users from either manually or using a CSV file also. And what I did there, though, was I had Todd do it, right? So I let our dear friend Todd Clint be a special guest host on my YouTube channel. So I kind of did the intro, I let Todd do the whole video, and then at the end, I apologized for letting Todd do a video. Anyway, I would love feedback on what do you think about me letting Todd produce videos on my channel. I'm guessing since you watch us or listen to us every week on our podcast, you're probably pretty pro that. But it's good to hear the feedback. So if you're pro, send me the feedback. But if you're negative, if you're like, no, it's really weird that Todd is on Shane's YouTube channel, then I'll take that feedback also. So that's that. I also did 2 Power Apps videos. The first Power App video I did was customizing forms to look like InfoPath. Guys, if you haven't figured it out yet, I'm obsessed with Power Apps. I think they're the future. I think, I've said it several times, 2018 is the year of Power Apps. I'm going to continue to drive this home. I'm trying to get on the wagon early, right? I hitched myself to the SharePoint wagon way back in 2003. That worked out pretty well. I'm now trying to hitch myself to the Power Apps wagon because I think it's going to be that big of a deal. So anyway, and this video, what I did was I took and made, I just talked about some of the things you can do to customize your Power Apps forms to make them look more like InfoPath, which is a terrible idea, right? Stacy yelled at me for it. She's like, this is bad. I don't want it to look like InfoPath. I was like, I agree. Someone else on Twitter yelled at me for it. I was like, I agree with all of you, but what I know is that people that are trying to transition from InfoPath to Power Apps, they want to do one-to-one, right? Not all of them, but most of them want to do one-to-one because that's how they learn, right? They're like, all right, I got this InfoPath form I like. How do I make this exact thing exactly the same way in Power Apps? So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to give them the tools to do what they want to do, because then once I get them in Power Apps, I can then show them how to do better, neater, more productive things. But I have to make this type of content, which goes against my soul, right? Because I don't want to rebuild InfoPath. I hate InfoPath. But it gives them the mechanisms they want to get the comfort level with Power Apps. So don't judge me for the InfoPath, right? Lori just reminded us down there, InfoPath just won't die. I agree, Lori. I've been to its funeral like 5 times, and it just keeps going. So the other thing I did was I did a Power Apps collections, how to send those via emails, do some sum, count rows, that type of stuff, and then some formatting stuff. So if you're a Power App nerd, lots of good content this week. If you're a PowerShell nerd, even nerdier content this week. So try to make a lot of videos. I'm always looking for suggestions. Send those over if you got them. And then last but not least on the video front is not a video I made, but our good buddy Daniel Christensen, who's in here sometimes it's not, right? He's a Power Apps and Flow MVP. And he made a video on how to make a chatbot with Power Apps, Flow, and Microsoft Q&A. I thought it was pretty cool. I haven't got to watch the whole video yet because I've been busy making my own. But Daniel's video is a working chatbot for like first level support. And he's using all these tools to kind of put it together. So if nothing else, I thought it was a pretty inspirational one just to show you how crazy of something you can build. And really it's pretty much no code. So that's just amazing. Oh, and then in the chat room, they want me to remind you that SharePoint custom list forms now support attachments in Power Apps. So, yep, that's probably the video I'm going to make this afternoon. Shh. So, anyway, all right, I have rambled on, but look at this. We are doing so good. We're only like 27 minutes in. Nice job, Shane. This will not be a super long show because now that brings us to Community Corner. So, Community Corner, SharePoint Saturday Vancouver, April 14th. Cloud Friday Nashville, right? Good old Daniel Glenn doing one on a Friday. That is May 4th. But if you go to Nashville, the good news is the next day on May 5th, there's a SharePoint Saturday. So you can get 2 community events in one stroke by heading to Nashville May 4th and May 5th. So it's kind of neat. Back to Canada, SharePoint Saturday Montreal, June 2nd. They also have an open call for speakers. So if you're in that area, you want to get throw your hat in the ring, try and get in there. That'd be awesome. And finally, SharePoint Saturday Charlotte, August 11th. I was getting recruited to go there just yesterday. I'm like, I'm not going to Charlotte. Sorry. It's kids, all that stuff, travel. I'm a wimp, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, those are the community events. Then in the shameless self-promotion, there is one more community event, and that goes backwards to April 7th. Oh, 1 month from now. Remember that at SharePoint Saturday Omaha, Mr. Clint will be the keynote speaker. In remembrance of that, I busted out here in the background, if you're on the video chat, you can see our keynote from February 27th, like 2012, when Todd and I did the keynote at SP TechCon. I stole the poster for it, right? Literally stole it off the billboard and brought it home with me. And so it's hanging up in the background. See, another reason you should watch the show instead of just listening. What else we got? How about May 21st to 23rd? You should know all about this now, right? But we're going to Vegas. Come to Vegas. SharePoint North America Conference. Lots of big announcements are going to happen. The Microsoft product team is going to be there. The MVPs are going to be there. And hopefully you're going to be there. We'll probably have a podcast breakfast one morning. Just lots of fun. And remember, if you use the referral code YOUNG, Y-O-U-N-G, you get $50 off and a hug from me. I got no words for how awesome that would be for you. And then finally, SP TechCon Boston, August 26th through 29th. That will be in Massachusetts. They still have an open call for speakers. SP TechCon, near and dear to my heart. I was there at the first one. I've been there for almost all of them. It is just a great conference. Much smaller scale than, parties in Vegas, but sometimes that's what you want. You don't want the big intimidating party. So sign up for SP TechCon Boston. All right. And then I think I did it. I think I got a half-hour show in. So see how much better and quicker the show is without Todd? I know. So I guess at this point, all I can say is thanks and have a great day.